friendos. I am chilling. I've had a super short day today, and I've been done driving for like 4 hours already, and I have just been totally killing time doing nothing of consequence. Like, I took a shower, and then I've been sitting here, I ate some food, and I have been watching random videos on YouTube. And I was just watching a video of the Kenworth with Super Sleeper 2023 W900 156-inch extended cab long haul semi. That's a long title on that video. Thing is an RV on wheels. It has like a shower and an actual toilet, and it has like a crazy amount of storage space and a conduction, like stovetop cooktop. And did I say conduction? I meant to say induction. It's got a sink, a working sink. Reading through the comments is kind of funny because it's like everyone's like, who could actually drive this thing? Like, obviously anyone who drives a truck like that is doing a very specific type of trucking. It's probably a team, most often like a husband and wife team. They probably only do a very certain type of run because that thing must weigh a crazy amount, and it also has an enormous turning radius. So it's not like you're going to regular DCs in that thing. Or some people in the comments mentioned that people are hauling things like jet engines. They're hauling things that are super high value and not a crazy amount of weight. And you would have to be hauling some very high value stuff in order to be driving a truck like that. You're not going to be staying in truck stops, most likely. You don't need to, because you have every amenity in your truck right there. And I'm just looking at this thing, drooling over, like, I want a truck like that. I see sometimes the FedEx custom critical trucks, and they have the same thing where they have an extended, they call them condos, right? Those of you who know, if you know, you know, because it's like a little condo on wheels. And I'm like, I could totally live comfortably in that thing, like 100%. Could I drive it? That's another story. I'm not sure about that. I'm sure anybody can adapt if they do something like that enough. And like I said, if you're driving that kind of truck, you're probably a very experienced driver. You already have a solid income. It's not like you just are going to start trucking and be like, I'm going to buy one of these condo trucks and live in it. No, I mean, I hope not, because if you are, you're probably in for a shock. So anyway, I was just drooling over that. It's fun to look at videos of these different fancy kinds of trucks, because I still always daydream about. It's funny how I don't think I ever would have paid so much attention to trucks, but now I'm like ogling nice trucks in truck stops, like nice Peterbilts and nice Kenworths, the ones with the long noses, the fancy paint jobs, all the chrome. And I'm like sometimes trying to peek in the interior when I happen to park next to one. And I really like how a lot of those trucks have, it's just a little bit of windshield, and they have like they have the low, like the chrome visor that goes around it, so you have so much sun shielding, and it's like you're in your own little cave. I know that probably limits the visibility to a certain extent, but personally, as a person who is, you might notice from the things I've been saying in my recent videos how sun sensitive I am. I just feel like if I could have tinted windows on my truck, I 100% would, because the amount of sun I get is way more than I want. It's not just a vanity thing, it just, I feel like it's cooking me. And sometimes when you see drivers, older drivers, you see how much the sun has aged their skin, but it's not about vanity necessarily. It is partly, but it's also like the risk of things like skin cancer. It's real when you get that type of constant exposure. It's not something that you should just ignore. So that's why I kind of harp on the sunscreen and stuff. And on that point too, it doesn't necessarily matter if you are blessed with melanin and you have that natural built-in sun protection. You still need to use sunscreen. We all need sunscreen because the sun is, those UV rays can do some nasty stuff to us. But that's your PSA for the day, everybody. I just want a fancy truck. I want to drive a fancy truck. The other thing I'm curious about is in that video, or it might have been the video right before that, I watched a couple, but I forgot about this, that some manual transmission trucks have 2 clutches, and I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if that's a thing that you would have if you have 13 speeds versus like a 10 speed. The first truck that I drove, first truck in trucking school was a 10 speed, and then I drove a 10 speed for a couple of months after that. And to tell you the truth, it's like, yeah, for the ease of driving, you know, when you're over the road all the time and like the fatigue that you deal with and everything, driving an automatic is nice, but I think I'm really glad I learned to drive a manual, and I would welcome the opportunity to drive a manual again. And I drove a manual car for 10 years before I started trucking. I think that had a little bit to do with why I felt more enthusiastic about learning to drive a truck, because I wasn't scared of driving even though I was absolutely terrible at shifting at first. Oh man, the grinding of gears was like the soundtrack to my driving. It was so bad. Oh my God. I just remember the first guys I worked for were Macedonian, that had, you know, the accent. I remember the guy being like, "What are you doing?" Because I would be grinding his poor gear so much. It was like, I'd be like, "I don't know," because I couldn't find the gear, and his ass was always on the phone, and he was like yapping, and I was exhausted because I wasn't getting any sleep and I couldn't find my gear. Oh man, memories. That's funny. It's funny to reflect on how far I've come since I started driving, but yeah, I like driving a manual transmission, and it's funny how there's this sort of elitism in trucking of guys that drive, I say guys, but people who drive manuals, and they make fun of people who drive automatic trucks, and they're like, "Oh, these steering wheel holders, they just let anybody drive a truck." And they do have a point about the fact that a lot of newer drivers, including people like me, got a CDL with not enough experience, because the CDL school just pushes you through, man. It's not anywhere near enough training, and it would be better from a education standpoint, preparedness standpoint, to get your CDL through a training company. In a lot of ways, you'd be a better driver when you first get out on the road, but then you're indebted to a trucking company for a year or two. I remember when I was looking into going to CDL school, through a friend of mine at the delivery service that I worked with a lot, this awesome dude, Ricky, who I love, his sister is a truck driver, and she drives for Estes, I don't know how you say that, but they're out of Chicago or that area. And I called and I actually spoke with like one of the owners or something. It's a pretty big company. Maybe I wasn't actually talking to one of the owners, but anyway, he didn't give good energy, let's put it that way. But they were insistent that you have to drive for them for 2 years. Oh, that was what it was. I already had my CDL, and I called them inquiring about a job. I'm like, "I know somebody who works for you. She really likes working for you." He was like, "Oh, well, you would have to still get a CDL through us." I was like, "But I have one." He's like, "Doesn't matter." I was like, "Okay, bye." So that was stupid. Being indebted to a trucking company, being trapped in a job for 2 years or a year because you got your CDL through them, that's not worth it. Or if you decide to leave, then you owe them money. Forget that. I got my CDL because I got a WIOA grant. It's a grant through the government. It's the WIOA, grant that helps train people for the workforce. It's something that people should take advantage of if they want to have a job in different disciplines, whether it's trucking or certain trades. I'm trying not to go on a huge tangent here. I think I am going on a giant tangent, but I understand why people think that new drivers are not well prepared to be on the road, because in a lot of cases we aren't. We haven't been properly trained. But I think driving a manual transmission is a really good skill. I just don't know that it's the best thing for a brand new driver, because there's already so many other things to be managing in your mind. The physical rhythm it takes to be able to manually, shift the truck, on top of learning how to manage the weight that you're hauling and learning how to feel the size of the vehicle, which takes time to adapt to. It's a little too much, I think, for a new driver. So I think it's good for a new driver to have an automatic so they can manage all the other things without compromising the safety, because they're struggling to find gears. But I think driving any vehicle with a manual transmission is a better thing for every driver of cars or any vehicle, because once you start to feel what's happening, you're engaging with the vehicle. It's like you become a part of it. It becomes an extension of you in a way that's much more intimate than just driving an automatic. Like, you feel what's happening with the engine. for something like trucking, I think that's really useful, especially if you're learning how to navigate grades and stuff like that, going up and down big hills. But I don't know, trucking was probably way different back in the day. Yeah, you could run crazy hours and have 2 logbooks before ELDs, and everyone was on cocaine. Good old times, I bet, guys. Some of you remember those times, huh? Tell us some stories in the comments. All right, this has been enough rambling for me, but I am in Minnesota, and it's unpleasantly warm here, and I don't like that. I have my AC cranking, and I'm sitting here sweating just from like sitting here talking. I don't like it. I kind of want to run the truck because my AC isn't quite as cold as I would like, and I'm heading to this drop-off in the morning. Things just got weird this week because of the tire replacement situation, so in order for me to not be late for this, she had to give me a lot of extra time, so I had time to sit on my ass today. I guess that's fine. It's not the end of the world. I'm going to drop this off, and then I'm going to pick up a preloaded trailer, which is at a place that it will be preloaded because they're always on that. And then I'm going to Idaho, and I'm excited to go west after my southeastern muggy, gross, nasty truck stop adventure. No thanks. Horrible traffic in freaking Georgia and Florida. Goodbye. Good morning, my friends. I am sitting in the dock at the Costco, finally getting unloaded, and you know what? We have to come back to the old tried and true rule of trucking. The only law is Murphy's Law. And last time I went to a Costco, I actually made a video talking about it because I am so impressed that they use these buzzer thingies. They really are great for letting you know when your door is ready, and it's just an efficient system instead of leaving you just wondering, like, did they forget about me? But today, something weird happened where on my paperwork, so I got here like 6:40 for my appointment that was at 7. I waited in a line of trucks that were checking in. This is one of those places like any other major DC, it never stops, it just keeps going and going. And my appointment was at 7, so I got here a little bit early. I was like, all right, I'm ready to roll. Like, I had such a short day yesterday, and I just feel like I haven't been driving enough at all lately. So I'm like, please let me, just get in and out of here, because the last time I was at a Costco, it was super efficient. And I'm sitting and I'm waiting, and you may notice I have my eyebrows done. If I have my eyebrows done, that means I sat for too long, probably. So I put some makeup on, and I listened to NPR all the way through Morning Edition until it started to repeat. And I'm like, why am I not in a door yet? This seems kind of weird. So I am messaging with my dispatcher, and well, before that, I look at the bills, and the bills say she had written 8:30 and circled it, and I was like, And she didn't say that when I checked in with her. She was like, oh, and there's gonna be a little wait for a door, but you can go park over there. The buzzer will let you know when it's time to get in the door, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm thinking, like, the last time I went to a Costco was like 20 minutes, and I was right on time for my appointment, so I thought they'll get me in and out. It's like 8:10, and I'm like, why am I still sitting here? What's going on? Something must not have been conveyed somewhere along the line. So I messaged my dispatcher. She said, no, your appointment was definitely at 7. And she actually sent me a screenshot of the email. So it was definitely 7. And when I first went up to the door to be like, hey, what's going on? This guy in the office who seemed a little bit stressed. Their employees, by the way, are usually super nice. Everybody I've dealt with. I mean, I'm not saying he's not. He was just stressed. I could tell. I said, my appointment was at 7, and he's like, no, it's 8:30. And he's like, I go by what's on my sheet. And I'm like, okay. I didn't want to argue with him, but I knew something was not accurate there. So then he's like, okay, go to door 432. I start to get ready to go to my truck. I'm walking back to my truck, and I see another truck backing into that door, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I walked back over to the office and told him, and he drove a little pickup truck over to the doors and ended up giving me the door right next to the one that I was supposed to be in. So there's some miscommunication happening, and it kind of sucks because I ended up losing an hour of time probably for no real reason, but this is just what happens. These types of little things happen all the time, and it goes back to the same old thing that I always complain about. I'm not really complaining. I really am not trying to be like complaining on my own behalf. It's more that I always want to get across the same thing to other drivers, especially newer drivers. I'm watching a clearly newer prime driver tried to back next to me, and she's a little tentative, but she's fine. You're good. You're good. Well, she's getting a little close now. Just gotta adjust it a little bit. Sorry. Need to get distracted. If you're willing to take a job for mileage pay, expect to spend time being held captive and not getting paid. And you have to hope. This is why the company you work for is key, because if you work for certain companies that are, you know, they're gonna make sure that they cover you when things happen that screw you over. Like the thing that happened where I got delayed for 4.5 hours. I think it was technically 4 hours. I think the extra time there was partly me. But I got delayed for 4 hours because of the tire thing. That was something that it's just maintenance. It can't be helped. I'm sitting here, I'm like, I need more sunscreen. It's never enough. I'm obsessed. You're sitting there for all that time, and my I mentioned it to her. I was like, hey, is there anything? I was expecting her to say no, but I'm like, is there anything that you can do to, you know, compensate me on some level for the 4.5 hours? And then I sat, and then because of that, this delivery had to be changed. So that's why I had a super short day yesterday. And she's like, yep, no problem, I got you. That's not going to happen everywhere. That's why who you work for in this business is everything. That's why there's things that are not awesome at this company, but overall I think it's really good. And a huge part of that is that I have this particular dispatcher, because I'll tell you what, when she's off, there's only 2 other people that I've talked to that are helpful. Then there's a couple of other people who are like talking to a wall if a wall somehow had less personality. The worst feeling, I think, I would almost rather deal with a dispatcher who was kind of gruff than deal with someone who just is flat, because it's like you can't appeal to them. They don't care. Like you can feel that they don't care, or they don't like their job, or they don't want to talk to you. And it's like, this girl has a cute shirt. It says adulting, and it has like 5 stars, but only 1 star, and it says would not recommend. You're doing great though, lady. I always love, like, from my truck cheering on other female truckers. Like, we all got to be out here supporting each other, and there are a lot of us out here. So yeah, having a dispatcher that even if they don't help you, if they express a little bit of compassion, empathy for what you're dealing with, it means a lot. So if you're watching this and you're a dispatcher, which I doubt, but if you are, first of all, say something in the comments, because I'd love to know if there's actual, like, people who are non-truckers but in the business watching these videos. I mean, this really goes for anyone, but especially when you're dealing with someone who has this kind of a job that's sort of isolated and you're away from the people that are in charge of you. If those people express that they see you as a person and they identify on some level with the things that are a struggle for you, it goes a really long way. And that's the kind of thing that makes a difference between people staying at jobs and leaving jobs for real. So anyway, hopefully this unload won't take too long, and I can get on my way headed toward Idaho. I'm so stoked to be heading west. I'm not going to make it super far today. I'm going to be finishing the day somewhere in